Good evening and welcome to the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole. I am Commissioner Simmons, and today is Tuesday, November 12th, and it is 6:05 p.m. We are going to jump into our meeting for this evening. And before we jump into the actual presentations, I do want to take a moment to touch on our 2023 to 28 board goals for the Board of Education. And that is number one, increase the percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are proficient on the New York State ELA assessment from 16% in September 2023 to 40% in June of 2028. Number two, all students reading by third grade. Increase the percentage of students proficient on the third grade New York State ELA from 15% in September 2023 to 50% in June of 2028. Three, increase the percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are proficient on the New York State Math Assessment from 14% in September of 2023 to 40% by June of 2028. And finally, number four, increase the number of students earning 5 or more credits in ninth grade from 70% in September 2023 to 90% by June of 2028. I want to make sure I highlight those goals, which we know are aggressive, but if we remain focused on students and versus adults, we will potentially reach those goals, make waves and turns towards them. I also want to make sure we recognize some of the changing climate we're in, where the New York State regents may be a thing of the past come 2027, given a vote goes through. So the state of education is in fact changing, evolving, and we will figure out how we need to move in this space. I'm going to move forward. We do not have any speakers noted for our speakers list this evening, and so I'm going to ask that we move into our teaching and learning updates. This will include iReady, the grants, and the minutes. I'm sorry. Before we move into the presentations, I'm going to ask that we entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the October 8th, 2024 ESA Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the minutes are passed. So at this point, we're going to move into our discussion topics, starting with teaching and learning. I'm going to ask that Dr. Vicki Ramos and Dr. Eva Thomas, they'll be sharing this particular presentation this evening. We'll be receiving a high-level brief overview of the presentation in its entirety. Dr. Ramos, we'll start with you. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Commissioners, for giving me this opportunity to present to you. And so, okay. As you said, we're always very aligned to our strategic plan, and we'll be going over the 1A, 1B, and 1C as well. I wanted to bring your attention to this slide that you've seen many times, but at this time of the year, when we're looking at the data, this is providing us with evidence as to where we are right now, right? And our job, once we get this diagnostic information, is exactly that small little circle is what's our task, right? And so we'll stay focused on those two pieces today. With the iReady, like in the past, you're going to be looking at reading and math. As in the past, we will be okay seeing yellows, because this means what is it that they're going to need to know by the end of the year. They haven't covered this material yet when we're looking at diagnostic testing. It's telling us how well prepared are the kids to confront it, but it's okay if they're not there. Our students that are 2 or 3 grade levels below, we give extra time on task. That's our indication. These students need extra time on task so that they can handle the material and the standards that are coming their way. iReady is aligned to the standards of New York State. So it is, what is it that they're going to be able to do to meet the standards of either that state assessment or the region's examination. This is our overall for the district in reading. And as you can see, I'm more than sure you're familiar with this typical slide of where we are right now, capturing once again moment in time. So we know work cut out for us in terms of kids that are yellow. We know those kids that have met some of the standards of that grade level that will be able to compete with that grade level. And then those students are going to need more time on task. This represents grades K through 8. Now, numbers. So, commissioners, I did impact with text boxes those numbers. Sometimes it impacted the color of the slides and even pushed some percents to the side. So I apologize for that, but I wanted to make sure that you had all your numbers together with your percents on the same slide as you looked at this. Again, it's not a comparison kid to kid, because remember, this is year to year in the fall where our kids were last year and where these kids are this year, but they represent in every grade level different children. And then these are the graphs for 6, 7, and 8 in reading. Okay. When we go to mathematics, this is once again district-wide. Here we saw a little more movement, which you're going to be seeing with the arrows of our students. Again, district average with all of them. And we're going to, once again, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Similar traits as you kind of compare them to the ELA, similar. We do see more movement though with moving the students out of the 2 and 3 grade levels with mathematics and 6, 7, 8. I know this is a very big high view, right? And we don't want to spend a lot of time saying, why are these kids here? Again, diagnostic testing is to say, this is where the kid is. Now you know where the kid needs to go. So when we first started, I said to you, this really should be informing our task. So what is our work in teaching and learning? And so this is where you would say to me, okay, Vicki, so what are we doing about this? The first and foremost, we have to align all of the work that we're doing to the strategic plan. The plan is very clear as to where we need to go. We need to look at stretch goals and stretch growth, which means it doesn't matter if you think, oh my God, how are the kids are going to go there? That's where we need to go. Our job is to create those ladders, and that what we use our term scaffolding, those pieces that are going to get students to be able to compete. So I know you've seen these quadrants together and many times, but at every one of our teaching and learning meetings, we have the question, what does excellence look like? The only way you're going to know what excellence looks like for our students, if you're seeing where they are right now in our visits, are we looking at student work, but what do the rubrics tell us? Where should those students be? And when we look at the left-hand side, at any time that you want to close achievement gaps, research-based, it says to you have to prioritize standards. If you were a teacher looking at your students and seeing that the gap is this wide, you're going to go, how can I do it all? Our job in teaching and learning is to narrow that gap and to say, we're going to concentrate on these standards. We're going to prioritize these so that we can get them moving in the lane that they need to be in. And so that's our first job, is what are the standards we're prioritizing per content level and per grade level, and making sure we're communicating those things and giving the tools that teachers need to get there. The next piece that we have is identifying the content. What does that look like? Right? What is it that we're teaching? Tier 1, which is the main time with the teacher, is all about grade content, right? That grade level content, so they're used to those standards and they're used to what it is that they're asking and requiring them to do. The next piece would be absolutely managing all those pieces with informed assessment. Formative assessment is our best friend. Right? We're not waiting until the next diagnostic testing to say where should these kids be and where are they. We should be informed at different benchmarks as to how well they're doing to the standard. We use the content in the curriculum to get to that standard, to get to that aspirational goal. And at the very end, when we give children time to conceptually think of what they're doing and revise their work, that's the biggest word on this slide, revise work, then we know we're doing a good job. If you have a curriculum that does not give you time for students to revise their work, we've got an issue. We need to be able to provide that time for students to make mistakes, correct their mistakes, And teachers be surprised about the great potential that they have in front of them and how well the kids have managed to deal with that work in front of them. So IXL is our algebra diagnostic that tells us, again, where students should be, just like the iReady of K through 6 and K and 7 and 8. This will be doing 3 years, 3 times a year, that assessment. And so this is where we are with algebra. Chart form for you that tells you exactly where students are. They have a whole year to master this curriculum. Kids in 9th grade have a lab attached to the algebra class that helps them also work on their individual skills. And I have some examples for you on those pieces so that you could see what that looks like if you were in an algebra class and a student right now. Here's your pie chart. It indicates students in algebra in 8th grade, because remember, these are our students that we give the opportunity to take algebra and sit for the algebra regions come June. And here is your 9th grade. So what are we doing with this? Okay, so this is what an example of how great diagnostic testing can be. These are the skill levels that students need to know. And if you notice in these bars, everybody needs to be to that red bar, right, on the right. But the great thing about this is it tells you, and later if you dig in deeper, it'll tell you by student, of course, for the teacher. Some kids could be at 0, but other kids could be at 650. So this is where we individualize work for them, and this is where that extra period of lab comes into. So we know that kids are on all different points of entry, understanding algebra in all different places, understanding that these are the skills that students need to be successful in algebra, and giving them the extra time to be able to get there. This is an example of what it would look like at that individualized plan. This is where the student needs to be. This is how well the student has progressed. So again, we're giving information to those teachers on how well are they doing with the skill level that's going to make them successful with the content. And here's another example of how the skill work and the strategy and their path, they call it their path, is aligned to New York State standards. Everything we do is aligned to New York State standards. I need to remind you that the next generation standards is what we tested for with iReady, as well as with algebra, which requires a lot more inquiry type of thinking for our students to do versus our past standard alignments. Next steps moving forward with algebra, no different than what it would be with our K-8 plan, and of course we included this separately for you, is that at the end of the year, once again, we evaluate, we look at it, because this is a 1-year rotation, versus when we look at our K-8, we have those 8 years to be able to get those students to where they need to be. And now we go to pre-K.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. Before we transition over, I'm almost thinking it might be more digestible to ask questions prior to the next. If you can remain, Dr. Ramos, thank you so much. And so what I would like to do at this time is open the dais up for questions. Now, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners to please be patient with me. I don't have my glasses on. So put your hands up high. And I do see a hand to my left. I'm going to start with you, Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramos, for your presentation thus far. Just a quick question about the iReady diagnostic tool. I'm wondering for our elementary school students, how often are students, or how many hours per week are students using this diagnostic tool in our schools? I think there have been some concerns raised here or there that kids have been parked in front of computers and are spending a lot of their work week or school day on iReady. That is not the purpose of iReady,
That is
correct?
not the purpose. So the diagnostic tool is separate from what you're talking about. When they take the diagnostic tool, students do have a My Path that is created for them. So how long should the students be focusing on their My Path to be able to accelerate the skill formation is no more between 30 and 40 minutes a week.
Oh, wow, okay.
A week. And so we've been very clear that we want to see teachers. Teachers, a Chromebook cannot substitute a teacher. and that we want to see that interaction with peers. Reciprocal teaching and learning from each other is huge. We also have been very intentional about with our primary K1, 2, what does it look like in a class with models, in meaning, and also changing the model that we had to make sure we have writing every single day in that classroom, meaning the writing process, just not responding to text, right? Just not reading something and saying, oh, what are these questions? What is it about? What is the main idea? In addition to that genre writing, yes, in first grade, in kindergarten, in second grade, because there's lots of different ways to do that with rubrics aligned. So we are totally moving away from the fact that a Chromebook can substitute a teacher.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. And thank you, I had not actually said this, and I do want to put it out there. We're going to ask that we keep it to one question. I know that prior to this, we all received the presentations. We had opportunity to absorb, think through it, and also ask questions prior to through the log or what have you. So this evening, I'm going to ask that we keep it to one question each commissioner, and then if there are additional follow-up questions, we can submit those to the question log. I will go to myself with a question, which is, I think it might be a little different than Commissioner Malloy's. The testing, as you did state during the presentation, hey, this diagnostic testing gives us an idea of how we are progressing or not, right? And you mentioned that it is important that we don't wait for the diagnostic test to see how we're doing. And I was wondering how often we are using other forms of testing to benchmark how students are progressing prior to them having to take that diagnostic test again. If that makes sense.
So individually based on that classroom, because you're testing your progress monitoring. So let's use the word progress monitoring. Every teacher is going to progress monitor if they are progress monitoring the fluency of reading, and then they might have what we used to call in the old days the running record, right? How well are the kids in taking in those letters? How well are they producing words, and how well can they read, right? If we're testing or progress monitoring for comprehension, how is that happening? Or for writing, how is that happening? So we are continuously and consistently asking, how do you know how well the kids are doing? And what are your tools for benchmarking those students? In the ideal world, would I like to be able to say these are the only tools we have? Yes, that's like an aspirational goal for me, so that we and then can create professional learning communities around the district to be able to say, I use this tool and I've learned how to use it really well. So that's an aspirational goal for my department.
Thank you. By hands, you do have one, so I'm just going down the line at this point. Vice President LeBron?
I just actually have a quick question I don't think I've ever asked in regards to iReady. Is the margin of error the percentage of we know for kids? And specifically asking because my own child who's in the district and does iReady has came back and said, Mom, I scored this on iReady, but then when I took the exam with my teacher after iReady for the class itself, I scored higher or lower. I'm just trying to understand what that margin of error is and how do we account for that? Thank you.
So the compatibility of iReady reliability is kind of a 0.7, which is pretty reliable to the standards, right? Others score at like 0.6 or 0.5. So the reliability of them testing the kid and saying this kid is going to be able to do well in this standard is kind of approximately a 7, right, a 0.7. Now, what does that mean? Well, sometimes the My Path is working specifically on certain skill development, right? And the teacher might be spiraling, testing the kids for standards. So sometimes it really depends on what was it that the teacher was looking for. As a classroom teacher, I always was spiraling with standards because I knew that's where I needed to go. So even though they might have done very well in their unit or their content test, right? That piece of content, how well did they do? How well were they able to reciprocate what we had studied? They might not have done very well in the common assessment that was spiraling that standard. So it showed me as a teacher, I need to work more on the standard of R3, right? Which is really trying to dig in to say, did the student understand that complex text, understand the main idea, right? Or the author's purpose with this? Or I need to work harder on R2, which is a standard that really takes that reading piece into it to say, am I really understanding what's happening here with comprehension? And then R4 is even harder. So as they go up on grades, your expectation of the spiraling of standard goes up on grades. So again, aspirational goal for me is to make sure that all common assessments in the district are spiraling to standards, because that's what they're going to be held accountable for, right? So curriculum and content, that unit test should prove, okay, how well did we do with the content? But what's telling us how well are we doing with the standard, which is that higher level of learning. So that's probably why you have a disconnect.
Thank you. President Elliott?
Yep, no
No
questions.
questions, I'm
Thank
sorry, I
you.
thought I saw your hand. Commissioner Santiago?
Yeah, very quickly, I know you touched on this for a little bit of the time in the presentation, but I just for clarity purposes, of course, it's always important to see the data that we are in now and the circumstance that we're in now. But for me, what's always important is the plan moving forward. And I know that you touched on this just a little bit, in the presentation, but I'm just wondering, what are the plans moving forward? Obviously, some things aren't working, seeing where our margins are. And I also do want to say and give props in seeing that there are some areas where there were incremental changes in which, it isn't always easy to do. But I'm just wondering, we see the data, we know where we are now, but what's the plan forward? And you touched on it a little bit, so I'm not saying that you didn't
So
talk about it, but
this graph on the left, I have to report to the superintendent as well as my colleagues at executive cabinet, how well are we doing with these pieces? Because we know research tells us that if we do these well on the left, we're going to start to close the achievement gap, right? And so right now our work includes prioritizing those standards. It includes making sure that we have a viable curriculum. What does that mean? That means is that what we're using, going to take our students to understanding that standard, is what we're using, making students think on their own, is what we're using, allowing them to have time to revise and do their work, is what we're using is really making them own their learning and giving us the time. But in order for that to happen, we need to answer the question, what does excellence look like? So our teachers using the rubric to say, my teaching is impact students' learning because they're doing X, Y, and Z. So it's a cycle, it's a continuous cycle. And then the professional development. We're once again back to training teachers and letters for the second unit, which is the science of reading, understanding. We have to get away from, we have to be able to say, why are we doing what we're doing? And you might say the kids are better, and my question is, how do you know that? So I'm always asking the question, how do you know that? How do you know that? We're not waiting 3 months to know if our kids grew. We're doing that right now. We cannot wait. This is just a moment in time that told me that I need to get my lesson plans better for X, Y, and Z. And these kids need more time on task. This is not what's going to tell me is my teaching impacting learning today.
very quickly, how much and how much are you guys speaking to the classroom and to the teachers, also the students? Because sometimes we don't
All the
speak to the
time.
students
So
on
today
the
we had
curriculum
great
and the
conversations.
instructions.
Let's go without walls with kids that were owning their learning. So we're in schools all the time and we're talking to students as well as staff and administrators. Not a got you, but what do you need help with? How can I help you? What does my department need to do to help you? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that?
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Commissioner Patterson?
Thank you. Dr. Ramos, thank you for a report. It's very clear, reading especially the graphs and things like that, to see exactly where we are. So I don't know who was listening to one of our last meetings. Could have been the interim superintendent, or it could be yourself. But this is clearly spelled out, and we can clearly see not only ourselves as commissioners, but the general public, where we're at and where we stand and where we need to go. So thank you very much for a clear
We have a
report.
lot of work, but working hard.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Patterson. Commissioner Griffin?
Hello, Dr. Ramos. Thank you for the presentation. Unfortunately, I've had system issues, and I wasn't able to really go through it like I would like to. So when I meet with you, I will definitely go through it and ask the questions when I speak with you
Absolutely.
directly. But you are very thorough. And I know you're very intellectual in the way you've written it and the way you deliver. So I appreciate the information you have provided for us today. But I do apologize that I can't, to the public as well, that my system is having issues at this time, and I'm not able to address certain things that I would like to. Thank
No
you.
problem. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Griffin, and I do want to say that I love the way you added or disaggregated the data around not only the percentages, but the number of students impacted by the testing. I think I see another hand, and that is Interim Superintendent Strickland.
So just want to reiterate that we do listen and take feedback from the day as to what it is that is going to best help you understand the information at hand. I will also like to mention that the chief of schools for the elementary level are actually monitoring those individual classrooms. We're at the classroom level of who may be just sticking the students in front of the computers. We don't want to make that assumption, but we do see some students using the platform in excess that is actually within the building. There is some students that are doing it outside of the school day as well, but we are monitoring just to make sure that the computer doesn't take precedent over an actual adult teaching them, because ultimately that's how those reds are going to turn to yellows and the yellows turn to greens.
Yes, yes, the lack of reliance on, that's another topic for another day. Thank you for that clarity, and at this point in time, thank you again, Dr. Ramos. Dr. Eva Thomas, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Executive Council. Good evening to our RCSD families and colleagues. I have the pleasure of presenting our Brigance data from 23-24. As our early childhood department aligns everything with the mission of our Rochester City School District, we also have our early childhood beliefs, which are aligned with the RCSD instructional vision. You can see where the arrows align with the instructional vision for early childhood core beliefs. We want our scholars to be able to have access to grade level content and appropriate scaffolds. We want our scholars to have a safe and supportive learning environment that is nurturing with adults that have shared control and student choice. We want our students to have a predictable schedule with rituals and routines with an organized classroom that is clearly labeled for our preschool scholars. We want our preschool scholars to be able to explore and problem solve through play. Also involving play, they're building up their social skills and talking with their peers, and adults are at their eye level as they communicate. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing our data for our preschool scholars. This is a tool that is used every year and is used in New York State. It is the Brigance assessment. This is an assessment that is used to screen for early development and academic skills for a child's readiness for kindergarten. It is administered to all preschool students as well as kindergarten students who have never been in preschool, or if they've scored a 1 or a 2 in pre-kindergarten. So the first area that the Brigance tests is the language development area. And you can see the difference between a 3-year-old versus a 4-year-old. And this assessment is based on the age of the child. So depending on the age of the child, the assessment changes. So a 3-year-old identifies pictures by naming a boat, scissors, or a kite, versus a 4-year-old who identifies pictures by naming similar qualities. 3-year-olds know how to use the following objects and can tell you how to use them. Our 4-year-olds name parts of their body, and our 3-year-olds name parts of their body by pointing to it. Our 3-year-olds should be able to repeat sentences with 4 syllables. Example would be a bird can fly. Our 4-year-olds follow 2-step directions or 3-step directions. The next area that the Brigance assessment tests is our academic and cognitive skills. This is where students are asked to share their first name, last name, and age. And it extends a little further at the 4-year-old age. When asked, the student can state their first name, last name, age, and address. For the 4-year-olds, they also are assessed on their visual discrimination. The student is presented with a row of shapes that are alike and one may be different. The student is asked to point to the one that is different. Versus our 3-year-olds, they are asked if they understand number concepts. When presented with a specific number of items, they can identify 2, 3, and 5 items. The next area is our physical development and health, and this is a part of their daily routine, so they have time in their schedule for fine and gross motor skills. So they are also assessed on this with the Brigance. So for 3-year-olds, their fine motor skills include giving a model to a student where they can draw a vertical line, a horizontal line, a circle, or a plus sign. 4-year-olds have a visual motor assessment. So given a model, they draw the circle, plus sign, an X, a square, and a rectangle. The 3-year-olds also have an opportunity to build a tower with blocks and identify how many they have built. And also for gross motor skills, our 3-year-olds are assessed on how to stand on one foot and to stand on the other foot for 5 minutes, which is similar to the 4-year-olds, but they have 5 hops, and then they have to stand on one foot for 10 seconds. Here you'll see the rubric for the Brigance. A level 1 is determine the need for formal evaluation. Level 2, to monitor closely. Level 3 is functioning in the normal range. And 4 is our talented students who need a little more rigorous activity in their classrooms. So I have put this in a graph form and assessed our fall Brigance data, which is here for our 3-year-olds. So if you look closely, there is not much change from 2022 to 2023 versus 23-24. You will also see that I've put it also in a table so you can see it side by side, and looking at 22-23 and 23-24. And remember, our rubric is to the left, so you can see the students who need a formal evaluation versus those you closely monitor, and those who are functioning at the normal range, and those who are talented and may need enhanced work. Here is our pre-K4 fall Brigance data from 22-23 versus 23-24. As you can see, not much change there either. Here is the table version of that graph so that you can see. Kindergarten readiness for the fall of 23-24. There's the data there. We can see that when our students participate in preschool, that they are more ready for kindergarten. So we have 39% at pre-K4, but we found out, of course, those who attend pre-K3 and pre-K4, it makes a difference. So there's 49% that were ready for kindergarten. And this data is coming from Dr. Erin Dupree, the research scientist from Children's Institute. So we took a look at our students, not only for pre-K4 and pre-K3 and pre-K4, but we also looked at the difference by gender. So as you could see, our girls were 49% likely to be ready for kindergarten, and our boys were 41% likely to be ready for kindergarten. Highlights thus far. On October 24th and 25th, the Office of Early Learning visited us this year. And the first day, I had a chance to present to the state. And the second day, we took them out on site visits. This was a support visit. It was not a visit to do a review. They felt it was necessary to come and support our department because we are a new team coming together. The feedback was very positive. We are still working on training our staff. We have approximately 60 new paras and 50 new teachers. So we are doing a lot of training to ensure that the high scope curriculum is rolled out with fidelity. We are advocating for a pre-K to K vertical alignment professional development plan, which means that we want to get our preschool teachers in the same room with our kindergarten teachers so that we are sharing best practices and learning how we can support one another with that warm handoff from preschool to kindergarten. We also want to highlight that in working with Dr. Ruth Turner and the district enrollment team, we will be launching a new initiative called Stepping into Kindergarten, December 7th from 10 to 2 at East High School. We will be registering our kindergarten students, and in doing some research, we found out that our CBOs were never invited to our schools, and some of our CBO staff are on our committee, and this was a data point that we found out, and we want to change this culture to ensure that they receive the same information and they are welcome to participate in our kindergarten registration. So we're excited. Registration opens December 6th, but we will have our initiative and our launch on December 7th. We're also working towards building partnerships with our elementary schools for kindergarten placements for the 24-25 school year.
That concludes your presentation, Dr. Thomas?
I actually had some more slides, but I don't know what happened to them. Did you find them? Oh, I'm done. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Thomas, for your presentation. Before we open the dais for questions, I'm going to turn it over to the intern superintendent.
Yes, just quickly, Commissioners, on slide 30, for level 2, the percentages are mistakenly misrepresented with the same as level 1 as level 2, and it should read 3.3% for the light bar and 3.4% for the for the darker blue bar. But it is for slide number. For level 2, yes, for level 2. You see that it was just duplicated, and that shouldn't be the case, but just didn't want anyone to be confused.
Okay, thank you. And for our listening public who also may have a copy of this presentation, again, Intern Superintendent Strickland was pointing out a discrepancy on slide 30, which we should be able to update those numbers, I would think. And so once they are updated, they will be available for view. Do we know when that might happen? Or within the
can have
next
that
day or
happen.
so, and if
Yeah.
you come back, so it is just the one slide, and thank you for pointing out that discrepancy. Again, Dr. Thomas, we appreciate your presentation. I'm going to open up the dais for one question from each commissioner. I am happy that you are having ongoing conversations and that we have identified the opportunity for CBOs to connect and come in and identify school communities that their loved ones and their children may find amicable for them. So that's a plus to hear. On slide 29, I do want to lift that I enjoyed the level 4 piece, because we recognize there's always room to grow. But
Yes.
we sometimes fall short because we have so much room to grow, and recognizing that there are talented students that may require enhanced work, and making sure that we build our muscle around recognizing those students as well, so that they get the level of support they deserve and need, just the same. So that was just a couple statements. But now my one question, snuck those in there, is around slide 32. And that is just for clarity again. This is pre-K 3 and pre-K 4, as you stated, which is coming in, getting that pre-education at the 3-year mark and 4-year mark prior to entering kindergarten,
Yes.
correct? And what
That is
I
correct.
understood you to say is if families are making sure their children get in prior to in pre-K 3 and 4, they are better prepared oftentimes for kindergarten, as we see on the data as well. Okay,
That
so
is
just-
correct.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the dais. I'm going to start from the other end and then move down this way, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Griffin, if you have a question.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. It's very interesting. I just seen you said stepping into kindergarten. My group for my ladies that we lead for the children in this community is called Stepping into Greatness. So it's very keen similarity, but that's great. My question would relate to the actual enrollment in the attendance in reference to our 3-year-old and our 4-year-olds. So I want to get this correct. Can you tell me currently what we have on our waiting list for our 3 and 4-year-olds? And why is there a waiting list for our 3 and 4-year-olds when we have open seats around the community with our CBOs? So can you please answer that for me?
I sure can.
Well,
So I
Dr.
can-
Thomas, hold on one moment, Superintendent.
Wait a minute, this is not for the superintendent. This is directly to.
But
for
he
Dr.
asked for
Thomas.
hold on, un momento, por favor.
I just want
don't need
to,
that.
what I don't want to do here is I want to make sure Dr.
So,
Thomas is
Commissioner
answering the
Griffin?
question, because every time I ask a question, it's directed to the superintendent. Please, Dr. Thomas, I want her to
Dr.
answer the
Thomas, I'm
question.
going to ask you to refrain from responding for one moment. Commissioner Griffin, this is no way disrespect to you. What I'm
It does happen
I
all the
would
time.
ask-
For the record,
for-
it happens every time I ask a question. It's not directed to the superintendent.
I understand.
I'm asking the person who has done the study, who has the information right on hand,
So at
that
this
knows
point in
that.
time, I'm going to ask you to exercise a little bit of, we're going to exercise some
I am
emotional
exercising it.
control right now.
I have control.
And I ask that you
but
hear
I'm
me
just,
out
I'm
as
just
the
a little
person-
irritated by the fact
I
that
understand.
every time I ask a question,
Okay.
you have to direct it
I
towards.
don't want to stop your mic, so
No, you
what I'm
can't stop
trying,
my mic.
I
though. You
can.
No, you can't.
And
I'm
what
sorry,
I, as the
excuse-
chair for this committee.
Excuse me, Commissioners,
Yeah.
as Commissioner Simmons says, as the chair, she does have control right now.
Right,
So,
but she can't
and
stop the mic.
respectfully, Commissioner, the employees work for the superintendent. The superintendent is allowed to chime in and respond to items that pertain to the management of the district, whether or not that's directed to another employee.
So with that said, as the chair, and I'm going to complete my statement, this is of course no form of disrespect. What I want you to understand is, as the question which I allowed you to ask in its entirety to Dr. Thomas was proceeded, I did see that the superintendent asked to weigh in. Dr. Thomas reports to the superintendent, and so based on protocol that you always talk about decently and in order, based on that protocol, I am regressing to the superintendent to now respond. And I know that may not be something you want, but he's going to weigh in, and then we can take it from there. But this is not to be funny.
Is she
This
going to also respond, though? Is
But
what I'm
he is her
asking.
boss. And so Superintendent Strickland is asking for the mic, and I, as the chair, am giving him the mic at this point in time.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Simmons. Commissioner Griffin, as always, your questions are very insightful and they will be answered. We're going to respectfully ask that that question be committed to the board log, and it's because this presentation that has been provided today is strictly focused on diagnostic. And in order to really streamline our communication with the public and make sure we don't get things unclear and muddled, we want to be sure that we stick to any information that has been provided to you in the presentation. But you will definitely hear from Dr. Thomas via Dr. Ramos, who she reports to directly, when you put in the question log, that your information will be answered immediately.
Before we move forward with this conversation, I will ask our clerk, when were you able to capture Commissioner Griffin's question for the question log? Okay, the question is going to be answered. We are going to maintain our questions on the presentation at hand, and at this particular time, I did allow you to ask that question, which we're putting in the question log. Do you have a specific question for the presentation based on the diagnostics that were presented to us this evening? I will allow you to ask another question based on the actual presentation if you do have one.
Well, I will say this. Unfortunately, Dr. Thomas, I was not able to view this information because, again, my system is not working because somebody, for the record, moved my systems, and I don't have access to my information to actually view or see because I don't have my glasses. So my system is directly related, and I can see it with my visuals without my glasses if need be. So I was actually trying to look at my my colleagues, and so it was a little difficult. So I was listening as well, but I do believe that the attendance and the enrollment would impact these results as well. So at this time, no, I will refrain from asking any other questions from you, since that they're saying that the enrollment and attendance would not affect this. But I think it would. Thank you very much.
Point of correction, not that it will not correct it, it's just not a relevant question for this particular time. I'm going to move on with the questions, and I will ask if Commissioner Patterson has a question that he would like to present at this time.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome, Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. Commissioner Santiago?
Yes, just wondering for the pre-K 4 and pre-K 3 students who are in the level 1 of need of support. Of course, that can result in many things, both level 1 and level 2, which is around 35%. But I'm wondering, what are we doing to support those students before they get into the first grade, because or kindergarten? Correction, because that can also be affecting the iReady. So I'm just wondering, we can see a pattern here. When you look at the data, you see a pattern where you go from kindergarten to first grade to second grade all the way up to 8th grade, where the percentage gets higher when it comes to students who are 3 grades below. And so I'm just wondering, what are we doing in support for those students to try to go away from another student who's 3 grade levels behind?
Okay, thank you for that question, Commissioner Santiago. So first of all, we have a model in the early childhood department. We have a team of people who work with our classrooms. So we have a coach, we have a social worker, and we have an adult family educator. So we have a 3-pronged approach. So we meet with the parents. We start with the teachers, though, classroom teachers. We have a behavioral log, which is called an ABC log, antecedent behavior, and they collect the information, and from that information, students are brought to an MTSS team, which we started this year. We have also partnered with Nicole Haynes so that our preschool scholars can be on Panorama. They were never on Panorama, so now they will be. Their attendance, their behavioral concerns, and their classroom data will now be housed on Panorama so that we can look at the child, the whole child, from pre-K to 12th grade. And so we take all of that data and that information, and assessments are done. We've been working collaboratively with Kristen Swan and Maggie in our specialized services. We've been meeting monthly. We've been talking about students. They've shared the compliance log. We've been working very closely with parents. We have a new grant with Dr. Brian Harrison, but it is a grant that is only used by the parents, with the social workers supporting. So if the parents, in working with the team, feels that it is necessary to move forward, then Dr. Brian comes in the classroom, he does an observation, he makes an assessment, and then we move forward with the parent. But it is an approach that is welcoming and supportive of the entire family as well as the child. And in preschool, we're always collecting data, always, because it's an observational environment. So we're collecting data all the time. We're observing what they do, what they say, everything they do is written down.
Yeah, and I just want to say, that thank you.
You're welcome.
And that
You're
sounds like
welcome.
an amazing program that supports the whole child and family, because that's important, in the conversation. I'm excited to see the effectiveness and the numbers in the upcoming years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. President Elliott?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. No questions. And Commissioner Malloy?
Sure. Dr. Thomas, thank you so much for a great presentation. I did have a quick question for slide 26. For the gross, I may have missed this. For the gross motor skills for the 3-year-olds, it said the student is asked to stand on one foot for 5 seconds and then to stand on the other foot for 5 minutes. So it's 5 minutes, or is it 5 seconds that they're switching? The only reason I ask is I don't know if I could do that, like as an adult. So I wasn't sure. It's so minor.
I'm
It's so
thinking
minor.
it's 5 seconds, yeah.
5
Might be
seconds,
a
okay.
typo, I think it's 5 seconds.
My
yeah.
eyes just opened wide when I read
Yeah,
that, because
yeah.
like, whoa, I don't think I
think
could do
it's a
that.
typo, it is 5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's good to know,
Yeah.
because I was thinking the same thing, but I said I'm old, so maybe they can and I can't.
Yeah.
I apologize for the typos.
No, it's
Please
okay.
forgive me.
I just was like,
Yeah.
wow, we've got really
Yeah.
high expectations. But I wanted to say thank you so much for, building partnerships with our elementary schools in terms of placements with the CBOs. I'm surprised that that hasn't been happening. And I do know that our charter schools are in those CBO environments recruiting students, and so this is refreshing to hear, to say the least. So
Yes.
great strategy, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. I will give a shout out to Caring and Sharing. They have taken it upon themselves to partner with 33 schools, and Friendship has partnered with 45 schools. But the majority of our CBOs have not been invited in to schools. And so we were strategic when we formed the subcommittee to do the kindergarten transition initiative, to have those members on our committee, to hear their voices and to hear their stories and testimonies so that we could change the culture, right?
Thank you. I have not had the opportunity to look at Friendship, but I have had the opportunity to visit Caring and Sharing, and they are in fact phenomenal. I love it every time.
Yes.
That's probably one of my favorite things are the little kids, because they come up and hug your legs and you get all the love in the world. But Dr.
Yes.
Thomas, we do appreciate your presentation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, so we are going to move the presentations forward, and we're going to, at this time, hear from our Chief of Staff, LaShara Evans, who will be presenting on the quarterly academic plan, providing an update on that plan.
All right, thank you. Good evening, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Interim Superintendent Strickland, Commissioner, and fellow listening audience. Today, I will be sharing academic updates for quarter 1. The plan has 47 recommendations, and I first want to say thank you to our state monitor, Jaime Alicea, for aligning the recommendations to our strategic plan. This allows us to ensure that the plan is part of our everyday work. As you can see on this slide, the plan is structured around 5 domains. Turnaround leadership has 9 recommendations. Talent management has 6. Instructional transformation has 22, as it should, because it's instruction. Culture shift has 4. Systems, resources, and structures has 6. What'd you say? Point it over here? Okay, thank you. The reporting process includes relevant departments will submit evidence for recommendations, and this may include data, PowerPoints, other presentations that is relevant to the recommendation. The state monitor, the superintendent, Deputy Turner, and myself will review the plan. If evidence needs to be adjusted or revised, we will do so for each recommendation. I then submit the plan to the state monitor. We sit down together, and I want to thank him for his collaboration, because we go through every single recommendation, make sure that links are working, make sure that there is necessary evidence. If there's questions, he gives me a little push, and I will go back to the relevant department if needed. The final and I also want to mention Mark Potter, who's our financial consultant. His focus is the financial plan, but he is also integral in looking at the academic plan as well. The final document is sent to the Commissioner of Education, and lastly, the New York State Education Department, and the superintendent will conduct a review. The report in question for quarter one is, has the district fully implemented the actions required during quarter one? We answer in quarter one, just to note, is from July 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2024. We can answer either yes, no in progress, or no partial implementation. I want to make sure that I mention that no in progress is if the district started and made significant progress. An example is if a recommendation is due, say, December 30th, therefore it's going to be no in progress because it's not due for this quarter. And partial implementation is if the district implemented timely at least 50%, at least 50, but less than 75%. Now I will take you through each domain and speak quickly to each of the domains and where we have areas of appropriate progress and where we have areas of progress. Turnaround leadership, there were 5 yeses and 4 nos. Included in areas of appropriate progress is the superintendent search, which all of you are fairly familiar with. The powers of the receiver, we'll continue to enact powers of the receiver and adjust as needed throughout the school year. Interim Superintendent Strickland goals, they were approved at the October 8th special meeting. Mid-year progress report is anticipated for February. For consistency, members of the cabinet's goals include the board goals, as well as metrics that are related to their particular role. Now for areas of progress, the transition of East High School. Transition teams have been established. Actually, they meet monthly. There's a core team which governs the transition of East High back to RCSD, East Lower and Upper back to Rochester City School District. The other teams that are guiding this work are organized by the tenets of the DITSI, which is the diagnostic tool for school and district effectiveness. 2024 high school graduation metrics. The superintendent has created a schedule to present data to the Board of Education regularly at this meeting, ESA. School chiefs have begun to discuss goals with principals, aligning school-based goals with the strategic plan. And lastly, as you're also aware of, the governance model adoption. This is in process with assistance from the Council of Great City Schools. Moving on to talent management. There are 5 yeses and 1 no in progress. The Leadership Academy for aspiring central office and school leaders, being led by Human Capital, Dr. Miller. Using the TNTP rubric, learning walks are occurring in schools. School chiefs then analyze the data from the learning walks to determine next steps for professional learning. APPR, in collaboration, there's a team, in collaboration, the following team members from Human Capital, Teaching and Learning, Special Education, and the State Monitor, they have monthly reviews of randomly selected and redacted evaluations. This review helps us to ensure the quality and integrity of our evaluation processes. And then areas of progress is making sure that our district professional development plan is aligned to the strategic plan. Next domain is instructional transformation. 9 yeses, 12 no in progress, and 1 no. Areas of appropriate progress include update of curriculum materials. We have begun working on updating curriculum materials by first taking inventory that result in recommended changes or revisions by the November deadline. The data-wise framework, the district continues to build capacity through utilizing a data-wise framework through professional learning and continued group and individualized support. CR Part 154, which is Commissioner's Regulation. The district has made significant strides in implementing actions to meet the conditions of the CR Part 154 Corrective Action Plan, which was imposed by the New York State Education Department of Office of Bilingual Education and World Languages. This includes systems and structures to admit newly arrived students. These students include unaccompanied minors and English language learners, or ELs. Key measures were implemented to ensure that families of newly enrolled ELs are properly informed about their educational options with formal placement notification letters outlining bilingual education in English as a new language, ENL programs. Comprehensive assessment program. Cross-department comprehensive assessment plan was created, and this will be shared with the state monitor. Improvement to our high school selection process. The online application for families to participate in the lottery is currently in the process of being reviewed and revised to become more family and student-friendly. The final revisions will be completed before the lottery opens on December 7. Monitoring MTSS. The pre and post assessments was conducted for the 23-24 school year. MTSS coaches are meeting with school teams to discuss the data and determine focus areas based on the strengths that we want to continue to flourish and opportunities for growth. And lastly, for areas of appropriate progress, the special education CAP. This quarter, the Office of Special Education worked with CEQA, which is the Special Education Quality Assurance, to revise the Determination of Need Evaluations form, which is D&E, to make sure it's more concise and user-friendly. Several action steps were taken, including soliciting feedback from stakeholders and rolling out the new form to our TCOS and associate directors. For instructional transformation areas not fully implemented, extended school year summer programming. The Office of Special Education has improved this monitoring of goal regression data for the summer by transitioning from paper to frontline IEP systems. Ongoing improvements include cross-functional meetings with the Office of Accountability and Compliance to discuss the best ways to pull and share regression data. Chronic absenteeism, which we know is a big district focus. The attendance department has continued to collaborate closely with school administrators and building-based attendance teams. Together, plans and interventions are being put in place. The plan aims to lower chronic absenteeism. Dropout rate for Black and Hispanic students. The team is going to review 5 years of data and create a plan. Next quarter, we'll be sharing that plan and next steps. Transition from 8, go 9. We're working to develop a plan to have transitional meetings between middle schools and high schools. Data to be discussed and reviewed will include attendance, behavior, and academics. Early literacy and numeracy workshops. The Office of Parent Engagement is leading a cross-functional team to implement activities to engage RCSD families in early literacy and numeracy. iReady, which was presented today, the prototype for the website is completed. The next step is to make sure it's on the district's website. Lastly, the graduation audit. The student support services and the Panorama teams continue to address the graduation audit recommendations related to cohort tracking processes. Cultural shift. There was one yes, 2 no in progress, and 2 no partial implementation. Areas with appropriate progress is we have our executive school-based planning steering committee. Areas not fully implemented is related to our website, making sure that there's multilingual access for the following: current and previous year's budget, academic performance, extended learning opportunities for students, current course catalog, revised high school selection process, and major district initiatives. And of course, we want to make sure that we develop a plan to increase enrollment in RCSD, and that's initiating a campaign to compete with charter schools. And our final domain is systems, resources, and structures. We have 4 yeses and 2 nos. Areas with appropriate progress is the district monitoring the status of implementation of zone and school reconfiguration plans. The consent decree, this quarter, the Office of Special Education focused on ensuring that the data pulled into the consent decree dashboard accurately represents the progress made by the district towards meeting the consent decree metrics. Reports of academic achievement is available on the reports of academic achievement and RCSD catalog are available in a user-friendly format. And lastly, the documentation of TOAs, which is teacher on assignments. This includes the number, where they're placed, and their duties. Areas not fully implemented include a unified, innovative, and evidence-based strategies at each grade level span, such as K-6, 7, 8, and 9, 12, and POCs, which are professional learning communities, implementing using research-based models. This is not to say that professional learning communities are not happening at school. At schools, we just want to ensure that they are using research-based models. And that is all I have for quarter one update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Evans, for your presentation this evening. I'm going to open the floor for questions. I'm going to start with myself, actually. If I can find my question. I think it was slide 8 that I was looking at. It's pretty much all of them, and then you can redirect me because it may be a question for the question log. But looking at, for example, the areas that are not fully implemented, like the graduation audit, some of the things that, a lot of these things are obviously, all of them are important. And I know you mentioned a few timelines on them. I'm not necessarily asking for the timelines tonight in this moment, but asking, is there an opportunity to get these not fully implemented items on a page where we can look at the expected timeline of completion or when we anticipate? Because I know we've had that. Should I put that in the log or?
I mean, for many of these, I mean, it's an academic plan. It spans over a year. If you want something specific, you can commit that to the question log. This year is just for the public to actually show the main overview of what the academic plan is. Very similar to what I've presented last year and showing what's new, what's different. But we certainly want to commit a lot of those audits and recommendations to a close. We are making steady progress, so if you want the update on the progress, absolutely, we'll provide it in the question. We'll provide the answer in the question log.
Thank you. And so I'll kind of formalize my question to get that to the log to you formally after this. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to formally open it up on the dais. I'm going to do a piggyback, like a back and forth type of thing. We're going to start to my left with Commissioner Malloy at this point. One question. Thank you.
Great. Actually, thank you so much for your presentation. It's nice to see the progress that we're making. Anxious to see timelines, of course, but no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go down to the other opposite end. Do we have anything from you, Commissioner Griffin? Commissioner Patterson? Commissioner Patterson?
No questions, but thank you for your presentation.
And moving back towards me, Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, this is because the state, I know, is watching this because you're giving the presentation, and this is the public's way to inform this. My question is actually directed to, or comment to the state. And Jaime's here representing the state, and I don't think you'll have an answer for this, but I want us all to be mindful of what's coming down the pipeline and what that will look like regarding this specific plan. And I want to acknowledge that I know President Elliott is working on gathering some leaders from different groups and to start having the conversations that are going to be extremely difficult to have, but we need to have them. But as I was listening to all of the progress that we've made, because there's so much progress here, I know that we still have a lot of no's, but these are really big things to sort of turn around and uplift in this district. And there are so many. And it's not just, this is just on the academic side. There's still a whole lot to still do and continue to do on the financial end to make this whole district. But I just want to uplift that. I'm going to be looking to the states to give us as well some guidance sooner rather than later around this in particular as well.
It is a very interesting climate indeed, and so I'm going to move on to you, Commissioner Santiago. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't see you.
No
I told you I don't
problem,
have
no
my glasses
problem.
on tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity. The state has been working very hard to make sure that the district continue to move forward. There are conversations taking place with elected officials in the 4 districts that have monitors for the future of the legislation, whether the legislation is going to continue or not. Right now, myself and the financial consultant, we're in the process of getting feedback from different stakeholders, and I can tell you that I have been impressed because during one of my meetings, a person had the plan in front of him asking questions, and happy with the progress that the district is making, but to make sure that that we are going to continue to focus on student outcomes, student learning, and that we are moving the district forward. The plan 2 years ago had many, many recommendations. We tried to align it with the strategic plan, and we want to make sure that that is going to continue, but the state will continue to focus and look after the Rochester City School District.
Thank you, State Monitor Alicea, excuse me. And so Commissioner Santiago, thank you. It's finally your floor.
Yeah, I just wanted, I know you went down the list for slide number 8. And one of my questions was going to be to the state monitor, but you may have accidentally went past it, but I did want to hear about the CTE monitoring and implementation. Just something that's important on my end. And then I'm also wondering on the state monitor's level, how, from your opinion, I know that we have this on the slides, but from your opinion, how's it going, and you kind of already shared that, but, we'll love to hear from you too.
I forgot to mention, pertaining to that exactly, the Teaching and Learning created a toolkit that's online for staff to utilize to implement CTE monitoring and implementation. There is a toolkit.
Thank you.
It is an area that the district continues to make progress. Interim superintendent is working on that area. So is Vicky Ramos back there, also working on CTE and what we need to do to continue to engage the families, the students in the district. It is a great opportunity to make sure that our students have the best opportunities, and CTE is one of those areas that we can provide academic support and opportunities for our students to compete in the market.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. CT is something that we're able to create a pipeline of generational success from, and so it's great to see that there is strives to become better in those areas.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Intern Superintendent Strickland.
I was just going to say, thank you. I was just going to say, Commissioner Santiago, for the CTE monitoring and implementation, that's a prime example of something that'll almost never be whole because our world is consistently changing. We have to consistently make sure that our programs are getting accreditation and things of that nature. That's going to be ongoing, and I just want the public to always know that just because it's not a yes doesn't mean that progress isn't being made. It's just one of those areas that actually, if we're doing the right thing, it should never be fully met because we need to keep going with the times.
We'll just say you're saying continuous improvement, and then maybe to that point, we can demonstrate the progress made as we continue to update and progress and show the different grade levels that have access. So I do appreciate that. And I'm going to end the conversation or discussion or questions with President Elliott at this time.
I just wanted to say I actually had 30 questions.
You got one tonight,
But
ma'am.
I just have one. I'll just focus in on the CTE monitoring implementation. I think that can be an amazing program. I think it could be very exciting. That's not where we are right now, and I'm disappointed in that. There's so much, particularly over at Edison, that we can highlight. I don't think that we do a good job in ensuring that what we have to offer, that we're putting it out there. Now, that's not just for the city school district, totally in Rochester. Yeah. People don't highlight here what we do well, and we've got to look at doing that. We've got to have, we just have to move this in a way in which our students and our families find it to be extremely excited, because it can be. And it just seems at this point that it's lackluster. And so and I put that out there intentionally. I'm saying that intentionally. And so let's see what we could do to change that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Elliott. So that concludes this presentation, it looks like. And again, I don't see anything else. Thank you again,
Thank
Chief
you.
Evans. Let me go to this agenda really quickly. So that was our last presentation for this evening. We do have a couple of reports for our viewing public and commissioners alike. The receivership reports are available under reports. You'll see that in board docs, as well as our recap report, which is based on policy 4320.5, and that is the Rochester Early Childhood Assessment Partnership Report. So both of those are available to our viewing public as well as commissioners for additional review.
Commissioner.
And at this point in time, I'm going to turn to you real quick,
Oh, well, I just.
Mr. Santiago.
He said, yeah, because we're wrapping up. I just wanted to very quickly say I looked at the receivership reports, and I also wanted to say in comparison to the past years that there's a lot of progress that's being made. And I just wanted to the listening audience, to the principals, to the teachers, just congratulate you guys on the progress. We're not where we want to be, but we're getting there, and so that's important.
And that's important to do, and I appreciate you for doing that. Thank you so very much for lifting progress. And so I ask that you complete the survey. And then I'm going to also ask that we entertain a motion to close the Equity and Student
Motion.
Achievement Committee meeting for tonight. I think that was Commissioner Santiago, and then seconded by Vice President LeBron. All in favor? And I believe we have another, I'll turn it over to you, President.
Thank you. And so what we'll do is take a 5-minute break and resume in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Where's my gal?
Education has resumed. I want to thank Commissioner Simmons for chairing the Excellent Student Achievement Committee. Did an amazing job with all of the reports, very good. And so we are now convening this meeting, special meeting to convene for consideration of resolutions. We have no speakers tonight, and if it's okay with my colleagues, we will bundle these. Is that okay that we bundle them? Resolutions 317 to 331. We'll continue. We had some technical difficulties for the moment, and so I was entertaining to secure a motion for resolutions 317 through 331. Is there a motion? Motion. Moved by Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second? Any questions or comments related to resolutions 317 through 331?
Yes, I have a question
Commissioner
for.
Santiago?
Yes. For 319, starting off with 319, just wondering what the description of and the responsibilities of the role is. There's a lot attached to that, so just want to get some more information around that.
Sure. So the executive director of the arts is a position within our teaching and learning office that focuses on the curriculum, instruction, assessment for the arts, which includes music, theater, visual arts, performing arts, and all of those related activities.
Okay, and then my next and my final question is for Resolution 331, just for the listening audience and myself, a quick explanation on what this program will be and how it will be beneficial towards our board goals.
Imagination Station is also called iStation. That's the common terminology used in our schools. And this is actually how our native Spanish learners or our bilingual students actually work towards proficiency in their native language. So as of right now, iReady is not capable of doing such a thing with fidelity, but iStation or Imagination Station actually does serve that purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, just in regards to Resolution 322, I wanted to lift Mr. Dima. He is such an excellent, excellent young man, and I have seen him in the community and at work. His fluency in, I believe, 8 different languages, it may be more at this point in time, but I'm just really happy to see this type of caliber of individual being welcomed into the district, so kudos and congratulations, Mr. Dima.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Any other questions or comments related to resolutions 317 through 331? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So that concludes the resolution section. We now are down to the board listening sessions with the Council of Great City Schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Rahima so that she can introduce our guest.
Good evening, excuse me, good evening, commissioners and community. This evening, we have Executive Director of the Council of Great City Schools, Ray Hart, who has been serving as one of the implementation coaches for the board in relation to the student outcome-focused governance model you all are undergoing. Additionally, Cindy Ellsburn, I hope I said your last name right, Cindy, who is your second coach, is joining, and I believe, no, that looks like everyone who is here. And Ray, I'm gonna turn it over to you to go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board, interim superintendent. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
Perfect. So I'll start by, and I'll be brief in my presentation this evening, and then open up the floor to questions from commissioners. First of all, I want to reintroduce you. I know that you as commissioners have already met Cindy Ellsburn. And she has, I mentioned in our last meeting that she is now moving to a place where she can rejoin our board support with you. And she and I will be continuing to support the board through our student outcomes focused governance process. And so I just wanted to say welcome to Cindy, and we're happy to have you back in the fold with us, and looking forward to working. We're both looking forward to working with the board. I'll just share a couple of documents with you. I know that we have kind of backed up this process a couple of weeks, but we are now in a place where we can share with you a couple of different items that are related to your community listening process. We'll do two things. Tonight, we will share a set of forms with you around the community listening process that are forms for the board to digest over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably say about 2 weeks. That'll put us into the Thanksgiving holiday timeframe. We'll ask for your feedback, any updates or suggested changes to these forms over the course of that 2-week process. And then we'll move into formally working to schedule meetings and sessions for the board to actually lift up the community listening. Want to share a couple of things. The first of which is we know that your superintendent search process is going on in parallel to this, and that in that superintendent search process, there was a series of community listening sessions. This is an opportunity for the board to hear from the community directly as it relates to both the vision and the values for the district. And I'll talk more about delineating what that looks like. In addition, as I share these documents, we fully recognize that the board already has adopted goals, and we mentioned throughout the process that we fully expect the board to maintain those goals. But you'll see language here that allows the board to ask questions about both the vision and the values of the district. We left that in on purpose so that the board can kind of check the goals that you've established against what the community provides you in terms of feedback. So just wanted to lift that up. As a board, you can feel free to say, we don't want to ask those questions, but we would recommend that you go ahead and ask both as a check against what the expectations of the community are. With that, I will ask if our board clerk, Rahima Nguyen, could share the first of the documents that we're going to share with you. And I will go through these quickly, so it won't take much time doing this. But the first is the Rochester City School District Community Listening Plan. You'll see that we updated that today. We tried to wait as long as we could to get a full board member feedback or commissioner feedback on the document before sharing it with you. And so there are a couple of critical items that I want to share that we heard from you. The first of which is that this listening process should really focus on listening, and several shared that perspective that we really want to listen to our community. And you'll see a little later consistency and clear expectations where we will help you formalize, and you'll see that in the script in a moment, the feedback that you receive from your community members in a way that's consistent across all of the listening sessions. Also, accessibility and diversity of voices. So ensuring that there are multiple venues and multiple ways for the community to provide feedback to you was expressed as important, including in-person sessions that had translators, including virtual sessions for those who can't attend in person, and then listening to all voices, not just the most consistent individual voices across the community. Another thing that was suggested and shared was making sure that you take this opportunity to build trust with the community as you go, listening to the community's voices, but then also several shared, making sure we let the community know that we are reacting to and responding to the community input that is provided. I already talked about consistency and clear expectations. We'll address that in a moment with the script, and then multiple opportunities for engagement. Several commissioners shared a range of expected number of meetings, ranging from at least one in every district plus some critical others to up to 3 per district or region. We will allow you as board members over the next couple of weeks as you go through the documents that we share to identify exactly how many of those you want, which individual community agencies, et cetera, you want to invite to the process. So we'll cover that in just a moment before we get to the end of our presentation, open up for questions. So given the feedback that you provided in the survey, we have come up with this draft community listening plan, and it is all built on what you shared with us. So in that, you will see that we are recommending a couple of things. Given the number of suggested community agencies that you may want to meet with, as well as listening across communities in the district, we are recommending, but you do not have to live by this, we're recommending kind of an 8-week window where you would go about conducting the meetings. In that process, we will work with you in a pre-engagement process to prepare a one-pager that describes here's what this is. We will identify to share with community members and agencies 2 weeks in advance. Here's what the sessions will entail. We will also work with you on developing, for example, draft op-eds for your local community, either newspapers or community communications processes. We'll also work with you on draft emails, which you'll see a draft email included in the materials that were shared. And then for the community engagement, we will leave this up to you. We're estimating somewhere between 9 to 18 community engagement sessions over the 8-week period, but we'll let you identify what that looks like. We think at least one in each district or region is important. Directors should provide feedback on multiple meetings to effectively cover the district and locations. And then once draft locations are set, then we'll begin an analysis to make sure that is this comprehensive? Does this cover what we want? Where that is not the case, we'll recommend additional sessions or regions to make sure that we've covered the community appropriately. And then you'll see 2 online sessions, perhaps one in the first 4 weeks, one in the second is what we would recommend. You can feel free to change that as necessary. Again, I talked about interpreters for English language sessions. There also might be interpreters for the deaf or hard of hearing, and then all materials translated into the languages that the district might deem important for the community. We'll let the district decide that. We recommend at least 2 trustees be present at every community listening session. We will ask one trustee to be a facilitator of the meeting, and you'll see that in the script. We'll also ask one trustee to be a recorder. You can switch those roles up as you see fit. And one of the things that we would caution against is having too many trustees. We won't set a limit, but obviously if you have too many trustees at a particular session, then you will trigger a quorum Even if as a trustee you decide to show up and you're sitting in the back of the room, we want to make sure we don't violate any open meetings laws of the board. So keeping that in consideration is why we suggest to. You can adjust that as you see fit. The other thing that we will suggest is that you as community members visit and listen in places that are not your direct community. So that is something that we would share. I'll get to this document in a moment, so I'll show it to you, but there is a link here under community outreach to wider community groups and organizations. Based on the feedback that you provided to us, we have created a draft document that identifies several community groups and organizations that you all have shared with us you believe are important to speak with. We'll go through that in just a moment. PTAs, PTOs, school organizations, students, parent groups, there are a number of others. You will see them identified by you in that document, and we can add to that as we go. Asynchronous outreach, there will also be, and we have a draft copy of that document as well. What we recommend is a survey as well, and making a QR code available to parents, students, community members, passing that out everywhere you can. To allow the community not only to provide feedback during these live listening sessions, but to provide feedback asynchronously through the survey as well. The questions are the same, the process is the same. We will combine what we hear from the online listening sessions to the asynchronous process, or the in-person, online, in-person, and asynchronous into one document to be shared for your review at the end of the process. And then finally, a summary of the discussion points. We will do that with you. We will develop a proposed draft with you of here's what was heard. Again, we will continue to ask, are there any groups, both community and non-community, that may not have provided their feedback? And then how should engagement and outreach ensure that all the listening sessions are focused on community, not non-community voices? So that is an overview of what we heard, the survey that we provided to you. And then from that overview, this is what we've taken in terms of our recommendations. I'll quickly go through the next document, which is a script. And then in parallel to this script, you will see a set of PowerPoint slides. So I'll talk through the script first, but then just make mention of the PowerPoint, because everything that's in the script is also covered in the PowerPoint, and you'll see where it is on the PowerPoint slides. So this script will enable you to go in and provide consistent messaging to the community and a consistent set of questions to hear from the community. You'll see that there's a slide deck associated with it, a sign-in sheet to make sure you've captured all of the individuals that are providing feedback to you as a board. There's an online feedback form, and there's also other information that you are able to pass out to record. So the first piece is identifying the purpose of this process, and there's a document that will be available that will ask the district, both the board and the district, to put together that is a short synopsis of 5 pages or less about what this process is, why you're asking the community to go out, why you're asking for community feedback, et cetera. We go through supplies, so what you will need. We typically use Post-it notes as well as flip charts. Those Post-it notes, and the process that we use is asking everyone who comes in person to first reply to each of the questions on a Post-it note. Does a couple of things. The first of which is it gives every individual there an opportunity to think through their responses to the questions. Second, it ensures that you will get feedback from every individual. So even if you have some individuals that might be shy, might be quiet, might not want to speak up, you want to make sure that you've got everyone who's there. You want to make sure you've got all their feedback. The Post-it notes allow us to do that. And then we use those to really compare against the feedback that is reported out at tables. So we walk you through a process. That process is, how do we collect the information? How do we use the Post-it notes? How do we post it? And how do we go about getting feedback, and then making sure that that feedback is entered into the system before you actually go out. So a week or two before your first community listening session, we will practice with you as a board. So again, we'll come in, We'll practice with you so you can practice the script, practice the post-it note process, the table process. We will make sure that all board members are well versed on how the process will work, how it should go when you're in person, so that you as a board go out again as a unified front, well trained, and that everyone is consistent in how they're providing and facilitating the community listening process. So we'll talk more about what the purpose of the meeting is, but you'll see an important redirection there. And that is something that we will address with both the school district and the board. And that is making sure that there is a process in place, and you'll see this in the PowerPoint slides, but making sure that there is a process in place so that if community members have items or issues that they want to raise with board members during this process that are really what we call customer feedback, meaning the members of the community are your customers. If they want to provide feedback on things that they want to make sure get back to the superintendent or members of the school district, that there is a process in place to do that, but helping them understand that that is not the purpose of this meeting. And so making sure you have that process in place will be important, and you'll see us talk about that. And then the facilitation we'll talk about in detail later, but we want to make sure that you're getting to the core values, and you'll share why this is important to you. On the next page, you'll see the beginning of the script. I'll go through this relatively quickly. You can read through it and make edits for us. But you'll see some recommendations from us. The idea that we have in yellow is highlighted on purpose because we want to make sure that you as board members, remember I said we will practice with you. So we'll practice with you, making sure that you're well versed on the script and the process and whatever role you might play, whether it's recorder or facilitator, or sometimes you'll do both depending upon how many sessions you have. We'll also make sure that anything that we do that is online, if we have virtual processes, that we practice that with the members of the staff to make sure all of that goes flawlessly. So making sure you look good as a board in this process is first and foremost to us. You'll see again, the setup context. I won't go through that, but you can see it. We'll go through that in more detail. And then we go through the actual scripting process. So you will be able to make edits to this script. You can feel free to change, edit, whatever you like, but by and large, what we found is that this works quite well. We have updated this information with everything from Rochester School District, the number of students that you have. And you remember we had a conversation about why do school districts and why do school systems exist? And so we are having that same conversation with the community. One of the things about this script as well that I want to make sure you understand is that this script also helps you educate the community about the process that you are now embarking upon. It helps you educate the community about the changes that you are embarking upon as a board to begin to focus your conversations, to focus the work that you do around student outcomes. You heard State Monitor Jaime Alessia share earlier that the state really wants to make sure that you're making progress in focusing on student outcomes. This is also your way of communicating to the community. This is a shift in our focus to make sure that we're focused on student outcomes. And so the script is also built to help you educate the community around that. Did someone have a question? Was that a sneeze?
Oh, I sort of cleared my throat. Sorry about that. I didn't know that got picked up. Let me turn this off. Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, ma'am. So you'll see PowerPoint slides. I will not talk about the PowerPoint slides. They're in the materials that you have. But the first of which is focusing on student outcomes. It's what I just shared. Second PowerPoint slide talks about why we are here. And this is the script that goes with that PowerPoint slide. So for each of the PowerPoint slides, we have literally written out for you, here's the script for that slide. Here's what you'll share so that you are, as you're changing slides, you're literally kind of reading the script and letting the individuals in the community know, here's what we're here for. On slide number 3, you'll see how to get individual issues addressed. So you see that PowerPoint slide that comes up. Again, that particular slide is specific to making sure that you and the superintendent and the superintendent staff have developed a way for community members to make sure that any questions that they get that are outside the scope of this listening session are in fact addressed, and that there is a way to manage that. You will get that. You want to make sure that there's a way to manage that as part of this process. First slide and the first question is how should we be able to describe a graduate of the Rochester City School District? Again, you want to make sure that those who are who are responding are able to say, here's here's a description of what we expect a graduate of the Rochester City School District to look like. The second question, which is just below that, and you'll give 20 minutes for a response. The second question, which is just below that, is what are the things you'd like students to know or be able to do successfully by the end of elementary school, middle school, or high school? You can allow those who are responding to select one of those, select all of those, and then we'll lead you through a process of not only identifying each individual's responses, but you'll see part 2 of that question says, now from the list that you just made individually, now what do you believe are the top 3 priorities for the system that individuals will discuss at their tables? What you'll find quickly is that many of their discussions will be around the same topics. So some of the topics are, again, literacy and math, et cetera. But you'll see that a lot of those topics are similar. And then finally, question number 3 is just below this. And question number 3 is with the priorities you've identified in the previous question, do you believe, what do you believe Rochester City School District should avoid or stop doing as it focuses on accomplishing those priorities? Again, the same process. We'll ask for a list of those things, and then we'll come back and highlight the top 3 of those. What are the top 3 things that you think the district should avoid or stop doing as a part of the process? So the PowerPoint slides are associated with each of those. If you scroll through the rest of the script, what you'll see is a debrief. How we'll debrief that process by allowing for table share outs, and then there's also a closing. So we've drafted that script for you, again, based on the feedback that you provided to us. If there's anything that we need to address, please feel free to make adjustments or changes to that as you see fit. I'll just quickly go through the PowerPoint. You can pull it up, but I won't stay there. Just to show that each of the PowerPoint slides that we just went through covers those same items. If you make any adjustments to the script, we'll make adjustments to the PowerPoint to make sure that everything is aligned. Next, we'll go to a couple of different items, and we're almost done. Only two more documents, really. One is if you go to the document that is the listening. So we did a listening session PowerPoint. There is a draft feedback document. Yes, that is it. Thank you. So this is the draft feedback document. This is a draft of the online version and the version of that will be used in the listening sessions, where you'll have a QR code associated with it. Those who come to the live sessions, as well as those who fill out the document asynchronously, will all come to the same document, fill out their individual responses. So we will work with the district. Either we can do this for the district, or we can work with the district staff to create the QR code and the information that will receive this document. And then last but not least, there are a couple of documents that I mentioned to you that we'll share, but this last one is most important. It's an Excel document. It is phase 1 and a copy for each of you. So each of you can actively edit this document. It is an Excel document that provides that allows for you to provide a list of the community engagement and outreach individuals. So there's an Excel document, if you don't mind pulling that up, that talks about community engagement and outreach. We have added what we heard from you already about sessions that you would like to hold with community members. And I'll give Give me just a second to pull it up. That is it. Perfect. Thank you. So what is in this document as well, you'll notice on the left-hand side, we have added, and you as a board can now deliberate on, okay, which of these groups do we want to make sure we include, what type of group is it, who is the contact person, and what type of engagement would we like to have? Is this a group that we're going to invite perhaps to come to us in central office to meet with us as a board? Or is this a group where we have to go out to them, meaning that we have to go out to one of their meetings or do a session with them out in the community? You as a board can decide that. You can also update and add to this as you see fit. And you collectively will need to go through and decide, how do we want to engage? And you can have one session that has where you've invited multiple agencies to the same session. That is perfectly fine. Where you have said, let's take these 4 or 5 groups. They're in the same community. We're going to have them in the same session. If you'll scroll down, what you'll also see is a couple of items, and that is there were several mentions of, for example, parent groups, faith groups. They were generic. Latino organizations, et cetera. What we'll ask you to do now over the next 2 weeks is go back and turn some of those generic requests into specific, here's how we want to do this. Who's going to be the lead person? And in some cases, for example, with parent groups or with students, you may ask the superintendent and his team to lead the organization of those. But here's, as a board, where you'll decide how you want to begin to do that. We're happy to work with you on that as well and provide feedback to you on kind of what has worked in the past, how districts have done it in different ways, et cetera. So this gives you an overview of a place to start. But you'll notice that we've got kind of a long drop down. Now you want to, over the next couple of weeks as a board, you'll want to get more specific about who are we inviting, who's the key contact person, how are we inviting them to the process, et cetera. From this information, once you've started to fill out the details of this, we will take this and lay out what that 8-week process looks like. Cindy, before we open up the floor to questions, anything that you want to add?
So I'll just open it up to my.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, we'll turn it back over to you for questions and answers.
I forgot that your colleague's name was Cindy, because I was about to correct you. I thought you was talking to me, and I do not go by Cindy. So that's why I sort of got raised up a minute.
I was confused too. What's going on?
Please forgive me. That is perfect.
No, it's my fault. My
Yeah,
fault.
no. I will
About to
always
raise
refer
up.
to you as
Like that tea.
Yes.
They all know about the tea. So thank you, Dr. Hart. So what I'll do is open it up to commissioners. If you have any questions, anybody want to begin, or any questions for Dr. Hart or Cindy? Not Cynthia, she's Cindy. Commissioner Patterson.
No questions, but I look forward to the training.
Any other questions or comments, Commissioner Simmons?
Just a statement. I do enjoy the type of facilitation you're suggesting. I think it creates inclusion for folks who are not necessarily inclined to speak out, and so having that sticky note process and putting it there is helpful. And I like that you suggested a parking lot. I call them parking lots when I facilitate sessions like that. So those things that are a little unrelated to the topic at hand, but you still want to get that question out here, you can put it right over here in the parking lot. We still capture it, you know, similar to our question log, I guess. So I like that you're adding that element in as well.
And we want to make sure that you're respectful of your community members. We know they're going to want to share several different things, and so we want to make sure we're respectful of that process for them.
Thank you. Commissioner Malloy?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation and all of this valuable information. Looking forward to actually the training process and practicing, getting ready for these sessions. Thank you.
State Monitor, you have any input?
Thank you, President Elliott. This is a great opportunity for the community, the stakeholders to look at the board in a different capacity to make sure that you're listening to them and collecting feedback in order to continue to transform the district. So great opportunity.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Hart. We will be in touch most definitely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Good
You
night,
too.
Cindy.
Thank you. Good night.
That's right.
Why?
Thank you, sir.
Thank
All-
you very much.
All right, have a good evening. All right, so we don't have an executive session, so I'm going to ask for a motion.
Motion.
Vice President LeBron and seconded by Commissioner Santiago. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.